Nuplazid, pimavanserin, is the first and only FDA-approved treatment for hallucinations and delusions associated with Parkinson's disease, or PD psychosis. Parkinson's disease is typically associated with motor symptoms. However, a common non-motor symptom of PD is often overlooked: psychosis. PD psychosis is a debilitating disorder with hallucinations and delusions that tend to emerge later in the disease course. While the exact cause of PD psychosis is unknown, it has been theorized that natural disease progression alters key pathways in the brain. Natural degradation of cholinergic and dopaminergic pathways has long been suspected as a cause of PD psychosis. The imbalance of dopamine and serotonin is another hypothesis thought to contribute to symptoms of PD psychosis. More recently, animal models of PD psychosis have shown that altered serotonin-mediated signaling to the 5-HT2A receptors may also play a significant role in the development of PD psychosis. Certain classes of compounds are believed to cause hallucinations, primarily through activation of 5-HT2A receptors. An example is lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. LSD is a 5-HT2A agonist, which produces hallucinations in healthy individuals. 5-HT2A receptors are found throughout the brain, with the highest density located within the cerebral cortex. Abnormalities in 5-HT2A neurotransmission may be involved in the neuromechanism of PD psychosis. An in vivo imaging study in PD patients with visual hallucinations has shown increased 5-HT2A receptor binding in the cortical regions. These alterations were found in the ventral visual pathway as well as frontocortical areas, which are involved in perception and recognition and may be a contributing factor to symptoms of PD psychosis. Thus, 5-HT2A receptors likely play an important role in PD psychosis. In vitro studies demonstrated that Nuplazid is a selective serotonin inverse agonist with no appreciable binding affinity for dopamine, histamine, muscarinic, or adrenergic receptors. The proposed mechanism of action of Nuplazid could be mediated through a combination of inverse agonist and antagonist activity at serotonin 5-HT2A receptors, and to a lesser extent, at serotonin 5-HT2C receptors. At the therapeutic dose of 34 milligrams, Nuplazid does not bind to dopamine, including D2, histamine, adrenergic, or muscarinic receptors. Nuplazid is an inverse agonist that selectively inhibits the basal or constitutive activity of 5-HT2A receptors. What is an inverse agonist? An inverse agonist suppresses basal or constitutive activity of a receptor, while an antagonist blocks ligand stimulation of receptors, but permits basal or constitutive activity. And Nuplazid acts as both an inverse agonist and antagonist, because it inhibits the stimulation of 5-HT2A receptors, and to a lesser degree 5-HT2C receptors, and suppresses their basal or constitutive activity. Essentially, Nuplazid decreases activity of 5-HT2A receptors even below baseline levels. Nuplazid was proven in a clinical trial to reduce the frequency and severity of hallucinations and delusions in patients with PD psychosis. Effects on motor function with Nuplazid were comparable to placebo.